Okay, if we get everybody seated for a second, we're going to get started with our afternoon session. Just wanted to say I wasn't able to kick off the workshop just a few minutes ago. Can everybody pay attention for a second? We're going to start our lunch session now. So I wasn't able to kick off the afternoon workshop session like I had wanted to, but I wanted to thank the participants and all our supporters in that workshop that put it together as well as presented for us. Had a great team. Heather Burnett Gold from Fiber to the Home Council, president. She moderated the entire workshop, worked with us, partnered with us on our toolkit that our participants got when they left. Joanne Hovis, who just walking in right on cue right there. Thank you, Joanne. She literally authored the Google fiber deployment, facilitating fiber deployment. So we thank her as well. Michael Santorelli from New York Law School. Also a great job going through all the different models, municipal models, and a lot of the research that they have done. And Joe Starks, who is our New York representation in that workshop, who went through all of the things we've been talking about for years. Joe's a great partner, has been for several years. So I'm sorry I wasn't in there to kick it off, but I want to thank all of them. Please give them a hand for all the work that they did. We're trying to catch up a little bit from our afternoon. How's everybody enjoying the summit so far? Great. Well, we'll keep up that momentum this afternoon. We got a great lineup of speakers, starting with a very special guest we have here that's going to be delivering opening remarks, Maya Wiley. She's the counsel to New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. She advises the mayor on legal matters involving City Hall and the executive staff, as well as providing counsel to the mayor on the legal aspects of policy and telecommunications matters. She also spearheads special projects, such as efforts to invest in New York's technology infrastructure and expand broadband access across all 5 boroughs. She's the founder and president of the Center for Social Inclusion, a civil rights attorney and policy advocate. She has litigated, lobbied, and done it all. Get a lot of things out here. We have a long list of all her efforts and what a great career. She has done so much so far in the short time that we've seen her in the mayor's office, and she's going to be a very special partner to us as we continue our efforts on the state level. Please help me in welcoming Maya Wiley.
So thank you, David, for that really kind introduction. And it's a little bit daunting to follow David, particularly when I am a non-tech civil rights attorney who's never worked a day in city government, now responsible for the cities, one of the largest cities in the country, and the mayor says, just go make broadband happen. You've got 4 years. So, and if it weren't for a partnership with the state and for David's leadership and the incredible work that the state has done, some of the things I'm going to be describing in New York City would not be happening. So I want to really thank the state for its partnership and its leadership. I'm also a little daunted because I have 2 daughters, so probably my best accomplishment that David didn't mention is having a 13 and 12-year-old who, when they found out that not only, did the mayor appoint me to this senior cabinet position and then say, and I recognize that law is actually a policy vehicle and a vehicle for making things happen that actually impact people's lives, and, I'm going to actually give you stuff to do that's not specifically or directly in the legal lane. And they found out that that also meant high-speed internet access. They were immediately disgusted and had no hope for the future because I have a BlackBerry. So I just want to start by humiliating myself publicly and saying that, don't worry, the first thing I did when I got to City Hall was I made them give me an iPhone 5, so I'm okay now. Yes, thank you. I want to say, first of all, I want to recognize that, there's so much happening around the state, and New York City is privileged to be in the best state in the country. We're inspired by what's happening around the state. And, I want to give a shout out to Lawrence County, 660 miles of fiber, right? And a local company doing local hiring to get it done. And, that's really inspiring to us because that's the kind of model that we really want to see for the city, where we recognize that, when we're starting to talk about things like broadband, part of why a non-techie like me is so concerned and interested in this topic, and why the mayor, who, by the way, carries a flip phone, is Just saying, I felt good about my BlackBerry when I got there. Really cares about this issue is the recognition that this is like the railroads were in the 1800s, right? I mean, it's like there's nothing we're going to do for our cities as an economy, you know, in terms of growing a 21st century economy, for creating the kind of entrepreneurship, not just big businesses, but even small entrepreneurship that is also solving some of our big problems, whether it's trying to figure out how to reduce carbon emissions and to create resiliency in the face of superstorms like Sandy, but also how to create the next generation of innovators and leaders for the country and our schools and in our children, that this is the kind of infrastructure that we have to have. And that it's not just an issue of whether, in fact, you have internet access, because we know in a state like, what's New York, 92%, arguably 92% penetration, but the issue isn't just whether you have internet access. It's how fast is it, and how much data can you get? Oh, and can you afford it? Can you afford it? So, you know, in the city like the state, you could say 92%, 95% access, and the reality is very, very different from what that percentage suggests, both in terms of whether the infrastructure, the actual physical access exists and what quality it is, but then also whether people can actually adopt it and make use of it. Both my daughters are in New York City public schools. And I remember that in one of their classes, when the president was being inaugurated after the first election, it was fairly historic, so the school decided that they were going to broadcast it in the classrooms, the actual inauguration. And so we decided that there was no better, rather than going to DC, we'd much rather go to our neighborhood school and sit in the classroom with these kids and watch their experience. I think my daughter was in second or third grade at the time, and watch this experience with them. And the dang T1 line kept going out, right? I mean, you couldn't even, but this is what they were dealing with on a day-to-day basis as teachers were trying to adopt smart boards and make use of smart boards in classrooms. They didn't actually have a sufficient capacity to use the technological tools that were actually available to them in the classroom. So, you know, in every aspect, and then, of course, watching at the end of school, we're fortunate in our neighborhood school that the public library branch is right next to the school. So what do you think happens when school ends? All those kids walk out of the building, and by the way, my daughter's elementary school is probably 2/3 free and reduced lunch eligible, probably 127 language groups represented in the school. Very diverse, very low income, very New York. And they walk around to go to the public branch library because that's the only place they're going to get online. Because they're not going to be able to get online when they go home. And I'm the parent in the school that can find out in real time whether my daughter has turned in her homework. They hate this, by the way. How many homework assignments they're missing, because I can get it off the online system and I get the alerts. Once a week I get this alert. And I was like, what happened to that creative writing assignment? And I'm one of the few parents who can. So, you know, when we're thinking, I just wanted to ground that, because I think all of our daily lives, no matter what we're doing, our experiences, we're either highly, highly privileged to have access and to be able to afford the $100 a month or however much it costs to get the high-speed internet and to use it in all the ways that it helps us create more opportunities for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, for the economy, for everything. And then to think of the tremendous number of people who can't. So what are we doing about that in New York City? One is we're looking at what's happening in other places, because one of the things we recognize is there's lots of innovation and inspiration happening everywhere. One of the things we've been doing is talking to Mayor Garcetti in Los Angeles, who now has a chief technology officer that's operating at a deputy mayor level, because they're trying to figure out how to be a gigabit city in Los Angeles. We're talking to Mayor Murray in Seattle. You know, these are Silicon Valley. Seattle's it's the outstretched arm of Silicon Valley, okay? And they're struggling to figure it out, which of course makes us feel a little better. And even talking to mayors of small cities like Chattanooga, much smaller cities in New York, I should say, Chattanooga and Lafayette, around their models for municipal broadband. But because one of the things we recognize is we're not all positioned the same way. You know, obviously New York City is a very different place from the Adirondacks, right? And yet we all have assets and we all have real challenges in terms of having fiber, because as we all know, it's not even just about broadband access. It's fiber to the future. It's getting to those gigabit speeds. It's getting to 1,000 megabits per second. And it's making sure that everyone can afford it if you can get that infrastructure in. And we all have different assets, you know, and we all have different strengths and we all have different challenges. But seeing how folks are navigating that in other places, I think is a key ingredient to actually finding innovation that will work for us in a city as large as New York. But some of the things that are really exciting that we're doing. So we are a pretty dang big city, and we have these things called payphones, which my kids don't know anything about, and neither does anyone else really anymore. And most of them don't even work. I shouldn't say that out loud. I hope there's no press in the room. The franchisees will kill me if they heard me say that. And what we've done is, and this is something I really want to lift up the Bloomberg administration for starting, is the notion that we can take this public space right, because it's the sidewalks are ours, and the franchise agreements are coming due. And we can actually issue a new franchise agreement that says, make these digital hotspots and make them free. So that we have 10,000, we literally have 10,000 structures across all 5 boroughs where anybody walking by, we know every person in the city, including low-income families, many of them have a cell phone. They have some form of device that they can walk by that hotspot and get within 85 feet of it and pick up a signal. Now, that doesn't solve all our problems, and that's not all the things that we need broadband for, right? We need it all the way into the home, and we need people to be able to build businesses off it. But just doing something that makes it free and accessible on almost every commercial corridor throughout all 5 boroughs is going to be the first in the nation to think about how we create a potential citywide free wireless system that way, by using our assets and our ability as a city to leverage our franchise agreements. Obviously, you know, we're lucky. Not every city has gotten Verizon to agree to a Fios rollout. Mayor Walsh in Boston is not really very happy about that. He fought for it. But we have it. It's one of the ways that obviously the city was trying to drive more competition because it's a citywide franchise. And we're going to hold Verizon accountable to its agreement to reach every home. And that is one of the significant levers we have, is to say, this is your agreement, and we're going to hold you to it, and we're going to try to get you to be more transparent and accountable in the data that you're giving us about who you're reaching and how. Because part of the agreement is, first they got to pass the block, but then if anyone on that block, once they pass it, asks for the service, they got to get it to them within a year or so, depending on the circumstances. So actually paying attention to the accountability of the franchisee is just one leverage point we have on fiber infrastructure. But you know, some of the projects I'm most excited about are actually the smaller ones. You know, one of the things that we're really doing, and thanks to our partnership with the state, you know, we have these incubation centers, right? We have these incredible places where we're actually providing this, not just the office space where people are co-located, but actually getting the infrastructure, getting the broadband, and using it to create these incredibly innovative little small businesses. So they're local entrepreneurs, but they're solving bigger problems. A lot of them are green tech. So they're figuring out how you can take, one great project, I love this because we have so much old housing in New York, how you can take a radiator, right? Which only older buildings have, and actually make it a much more energy efficient unit. But you need the high-speed broadband for that business, not just to run and operate, but to innovate what they're doing with radiator systems, right? So, and if they get that off the ground, that's also jobs for New Yorkers in the tech sector. And we know that for technology, these tech sector jobs, the non-tech job in the tech sector, secretarial, any of those jobs where you don't actually have to have those high-tech skills, pays better than the same job in a non-tech business. So it's not just important for the tech sector, it's also important for getting wages up for ordinary folk. I won't go through all our projects because there are a lot that are exciting, and you all have a lot of exciting ones going on as well. But one of the other ones that I really want to lift up, and I have no idea whether we'll get this done, but I'm going to spend all my time trying to make it happen. Our other big asset that we have is our libraries. And just like our schools, our libraries are a big source of access to internet, right? As I gave in that early example for my kids' school, and where kids go to do their homework and get online, and where their parents go, by the way, to try to get a job. And they get a half hour. I mean, I'm sure it's the same around most of the state. You can get and sign up to be on that computer for half an hour because you got to get off to let the next person get on. But if the libraries actually become a lending service for infrastructure. So we're piloting right now, and the New York Public Library's got 100 kids in after-school programs who are going to get a MiFi box that they take home for a substantial period of time and a free subscription card. So that not only does the kid in the after-school program have access, the kid's whole family now has it at home to make use of it. And we're going to try to get up to that to a 10,000 person pilot by the end of the year. And if we are successful in demonstrating that actually you can do a lending service on getting wireless access, free or reduced, into low-income families' homes, and by the way, you know, this is people are language, they have ESL programs, they have computer training programs, they have after-school programs, they have all kinds of programs in the libraries that most people don't even realize they have. That's in New York, we could easily reach 200,000 people that way. Just through using their captured programs. And if we can demonstrate that, and we're actually starting to talk to some libraries in rural areas, Kansas, Maine, are interested, because we think this is the kind of thing that if we can demonstrate it can work, anybody can do this, right? And if we can demonstrate it works, imagine what we could do together to go and support the FCC in creating the Lifeline program that actually enables libraries all over the country to do this. Rural communities, urban communities, New York State, every state. It's the kind of play that helps us all innovate, but it also helps us hold our national policy leaders accountable to creating the kinds of programs that enable our own innovation at state level and at local level. So I'm really looking forward to learning from you all about what you're doing. I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to partner further, both with the state, but also with other places around the state, to see what you're doing, to see ways in which we can work together and ways in which we can also go to DC together and make sure we get much more investment and much more opportunity for innovation into fiber for the future for everyone. Thanks.